So let's get started, everyone. I think people will keep joining. So thank you again, Rob, for joining us today on the Star and Me platform. A brief introduction before we get started. My name is Mahua Mukherjee. I'm one of the co-founders of the Star and Me. We are a talent development platform, and we partner with organizations to pioneer high-impact solutions around leadership development, building inclusive cultures, and holistic employee engagement. Now, how do we do that? We bring in learning solutions which are executed by global expert pool of 100 plus leadership coaches, ex CXOs of organizations, and through partnership with Premier B schools. And today we are super excited to have our conversation with Rob Salafia, who is also an expert coach on the Star and Me platform. And we look forward to do some exciting projects with him and our clients. Thank you, Rob, again for being here today. I will not be able to do justice to your entire introduction, but I will do a brief introduction. And I think, along with me, the audience who has joined us today will know about you through our conversation. Thank you for joining in. So, here we have Rob Salafia today. He's an executive coach and lecturer at MIT Sloan for more than a decade and brings in 4 decades of professional experience with roots from performing arts, transition into leadership coaching, and being in the journey of shaping leaders and professionals. If many of you have not read or heard about his book, it's called Leading from Your Best Self. I have gone through it, it's amazing. And it has foreword written by celebrity coach Marshall Goldsmith. Do check it out whenever you get a chance on Amazon and other platforms, or get it from your nearest bookstore. So we will have conversations today with Rob on his journey, his story, the importance of exec presence as professionals, and how it correlates to building leaders, and of course, about your signature product, Rob, on effortless exec presence. Before we get started, a quick housekeeping. Uh, Whoever has joined us, do raise up your hands for questions. It's a conversation, so it's not a masterclass that's going on. So once I've asked 3 or 4 questions, I will give a prompt to you to put up your hands up, and you can ask questions and engage with Rob through our sessions. Welcome, Rob. So finally, you get to speak, and I'll take a pause. I'm sorry,
All good.
I've been
All good,
talking.
Mala. All good. Thank you very much for the invitation. I've been waiting for the conversation now for a while.
Sure, sure, sure. So, how did your journey start, Rob, into the leadership coaching? And I've seen some amazing pictures from your early days of performing arts, and very fascinating. Can you share a little bit more?
Absolutely. I have the quintessential nonlinear career, but I realize in the many transitions that I have made in my career, you bring everything with you. And I built a coaching practice. As you said, I'm an executive coach at MIT, Sloan School of Management. And looking at leader development, executive level development through the lens of theater is a powerful frame. So I went to college. I was a geography major. I actually took a semester of school in Kathmandu, Nepal. I was in international development.
Got it.
But I ended up taking a left-hand turn when I graduated from college into theater. I was a street performer,
Mm-hmm.
juggler, tap dancer, rope and wire walker, and
Wow.
storyteller. And I did that for about 15 years. I performed in outdoor venues, theaters, festivals across the US, North America, Japan, Europe, and the experiences, the skill sets that I learned in theater were immediately applicable to business leaders as they show up and how they show up. And some of the things, when I first started, I would be looking at some of these performers that had two, three, 400 people around them and be able to hold their attention. It seemed effortlessly.
Got it.
And when I tried it, I would get 15, 17 people around me and poof, like the wind, they'd be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, what needs to happen? And so I learned that I had to make myself interesting. And what that really means, what I really learned, it was about becoming interested in my audience. I had to see them. I had to be able to feel them. I had to see their energy. I had to draw them in. I had to instill confidence in them that I knew what I was doing, credibility, and that they were safe to come with me on a journey.
Got
And
it.
little by little, I was able to break through. Now, when I first started, I was very insecure. I wanted my audience to like me so much. I would almost cajole them to like me. No audience likes that. It's not comfortable for an audience. They want to know that you are confident, grounded, and will take them on a journey. I remember this one time, I was about 3 years, 4 years into the career as a performer.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I had 300 people around me. I bent down to pick up my hat and I felt something drop away. Literally, it was this need to be liked. It was this
Mm-hmm.
need to like the concern about how what others what they thought about me. And I looked up and it was like I was doing nothing. It was like I didn't have to do anything and they were still there. Then this 2-year-old child, this little girl in a pink princess dress with a balloon tied to her wrist, a blue balloon tied to her wrist, came just wandering into the middle of the circle. And I froze. I looked around at everyone. They weren't looking at me any longer. They were looking at the child. And I'm thinking, what needs to happen? What's happening? What needs to happen? I needed to give this child her moment and then return her safely to her parents. So I slowly moved up to her. I motioned, to the audience to be quiet. I put one finger under each one of her arms, lifted them up, and I went, ta-da! The entire audience applauds. And in that applause, I was able to turn the child, move her back to her parents. And then I looked back at the audience. So what happened? They stayed with me. There was a bond, a deeper bond that was created between me and the audience that I found remarkable. And it
Mm.
was because it wasn't about me at that point. It was
Yeah.
about what was happening and creating something more than me. It was about the audience. It was about what was happening in the moment.
Got it.
And that's what leadership really is about it's not about us anymore. It's about the people that we lead. It's about others. It's about leading them to something, to seeing their potential and
Yeah.
being able to help them realize it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, just the entire lens that you change from within to, how do you bring in everybody and do it for them becomes super important as a leader. And this leads to my second question, and I've been wondering about it. I read an article by an expert coach again by Diana Booher, and it talks about exec presence in a subtle way, saying exec presence is not about being the loudest voice in the room, but the one that everyone listens to. And it's profound, right? I mean, how there are a lot of leaders, I think all of us have come across, we can relate to as this line is stated, and we can relate to some of the individuals who are not the loudest in the room, but we all get influenced by their actions, by they ask us to do or they do not ask us to do, just by seeing them. What are your thoughts about correlation of this statement with executive presence and how?
It's a powerful framework, Mawa. It's really about a give and take. It's not just about what you say, it's about how others hear what you say, how they receive it. I see executive presence in three levels. It's layers of experience. It's how people experience you
Mm,
physically, vocally, energetically, emotionally, relationally, intellectually, all these different ways people can experience you. It's how they experience themselves when they're with you. In other words, do they feel a part of? Is there a sense of where they have a voice that they can actually share in that room? It's the story they tell about you after you've left the room. That's your brand. So in this is if people listen to you, yes, you have to show up how they experience you as being confident, self-aware, both confident and approachable. This is an interesting area, especially for women leaders, because the sense of confidence, it's not confidence and arrogance, leading with your expert mindset. It's important to be an expert in something, but from a leadership perspective, it's not about having all the answers anymore. It's about drawing out the collective intelligence of your team. So that means leadership is really about creating an environment that allows people and ideas to thrive. So it's the same thing as a performer. You create an environment where something really compelling can happen. And it's the same thing for a leader. So that means they have to be, there's a self-awareness. They have to be aware of what's happening inside of themselves, their values, their motivators, the why, their sense of purpose. And then they also have to be aware, self-aware of how they show up and the impact that they have on the people and the environment around them. So
Yeah.
it's confidence and approachability. It's not approachability and weakness. It's this nice balance of, I like to think of it. My daughter did ballet for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw as she grew and when she went on point, she was an athlete. Her core was so strong. And so you have this core of confidence, but on top, it looked great. It was graciousness. It was effortless on top.
Mm.
Because that's the whole illusion of ballet. It's the illusion of floating, but you're grounded up on point. There's a beautiful way to think about executive presence is you have to be very grounded. You have to have a good, strong core. You have to know who you are, but you also have to create an environment that allows other voices into the room.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. So, like many other, when we talk about a lot of technical and functional skills, we know a roadmap to learn it. But when it comes to most of these power skills or behavioral, it's very difficult to uncover and unpeel the onion, right? So, when I've always heard about exec presence, it's not something that anyone can achieve overnight. It's a journey of personal growth, self awareness, as you mentioned, and being intentional about everything that we do. So, in your experience as an exec presence coach, how do you help realize this, disciplined approach to building this powerful competence
Sure.
to achieve this?
Well, I have frameworks for it. And when we talk about that, how people experience you, that's energetically,
Yeah.
physically, vocally, emotionally. Each one of those has a solid skill set to it. This is all based on hundreds of years of theater methodology, uh, pedagogy. So this is not like a recent invention. The skill sets are powerful. In other words, energetically, you show up on a video call, you show up live, in person. People experience your energy. Is your face alive? Are your eyes alive? Or do you have an infectious energy that allows that draws people to you? So it's that energy that draws people to you. That sense of gravitas is an internal force that can be cultivated. I've been practicing Tai Chi and Qi Kung exercises. These are energetic, physical, emotional, mental energy exercises since I was 17 years old. So we cultivate this
Mm.
vocal presence. You hear, like right now, we're speaking. I'm using my phone. Now, my voice is probably a little tinny because of the type of audio that we're using. But if you listen to and cultivate a deeper quality in your voice, that is sort of the has a sense of authority to it, but it's also has to have a sense of approachability, and because people find meaning in your voice, it has to have fluidness, it has to have inflection, you have to be able to hear the intention
Mm.
in one's voice. Body language. The messages you send without saying a word. Here's my own experience. So when I was a performer, I would be in front of audiences, large, like open. When I went into executive development, and I was a top sales executive in a boutique training company, I was a grinder, man. I loved my work. It was almost all on the phone back then. But I had this like look on my face. It was really intense. My brows were knit, and my eyes were like, I just loved it. But when I went out of my office and went down to the hall to go to the printer to get a printout, I'd still wear the face. I didn't realize I was making myself more important, other people less important, in that I was a bit of a jerk. And it wasn't until a friend of mine said, "Rob, do you know you're wearing this face?" I had no idea. That's that self awareness piece. Then she gave me a quote from theater. She said, "Think of every exit as an entrance to somewhere else." I wasn't so much leaving my office as I was entering into the common space. How did
Mm-hmm.
I want to show up?
Yeah.
How did I want other people to experience me? And so I went to work really hard at this. I put a sign out in front of my door that just said, "Don't exit, enter." How did I want to step into that space? What was the environment that I wanted to create? And so little by little, I would show up. I would be present and open. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, people, it wasn't just a fad. It wasn't something, what's up with Rob, but they started to notice something different. And it opened up a different level of conversation in the office as well.
Got it. Now, as you were saying, Rob, and the interesting part was you're all on audio, but I could actually feel the expressions on your face, possibly a practice of so many years, and that I could visualize how possibly you've been talking, and this is so difficult in an audio call, right? When you're on Zoom or any kind of video conference, or you're meeting persons in person, I think you gauge a lot through their body language, the way they're coming across, the way they speak, and the warmth that you feel. And when it's audio, it's so difficult to put that across. But I understand while you're speaking on even being on audio, I think, I'm not sure, please share with your emotions or emojis. If you could feel it, but I could feel Rob's expressions, while he was
So,
speaking.
so Mawa, you know it when someone is smiling and you're on
Yeah,
a phone call. You
yeah,
know it when they're smiling. Their voice has inflection to it. It has depth to it. It has range to it.
correct.
And this can be cultivated.
Yeah,
These are theater practices that we learn how to develop a good strong vocal cadence. We
yeah,
learn how to add expressiveness to our voice. And one of the best ways to do that is by reading children's stories. Read stories to our kids. Play
yeah,
all the roles.
yeah.
Have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a legitimate practice for expanding our range of expressiveness in our voice.
Beautiful, beautiful. And we experienced some of it in your class, and it was so difficult to do. But yeah, we tried it at Sloan. I have a lot of questions, but we have good 20, 21 of us on this call. But any of you want to raise your hand, please do, so that I can bring you on the stage so that you can have a conversation or ask your pressing question to Rob. So please feel to do that. I will be able to then get you on the stage.
Mawa, here's another idea as you're
Sure.
getting those questions to come in.
Yeah.
So one of the coaching clients at MIT, one of the EMBA students, he was a physician in the Boston area,
Mm-hmm.
and he said to me, my team are not coming to me with their problems any longer, and I think it's the way I communicate. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, someone comes to me with less than good results. I will express myself like this. I'll go, oh. No, you have to
Mm-hmm.
see there's body language, there's voice, there's he is physically and vocally expressing just his disappointment. So I don't know about you, but if that were me in his presence, I would feel that I don't want to disappoint him anymore. And it was a little embarrassing. So I'm going to be very hesitant before I bring something that that I'm struggling with to him because of that disappointment. And so that is a good example of executive presence. What we want to cultivate is this sense of poise, where if somebody has less than stellar results, we look at that person, we take a deep breath, and we just like say, well, let's take a look at it. Those are the results, but let's take a look and see what you were doing well. Was there anything? And what you might have missed? How might you improve and get better results? So, as
Mm.
a leader, it's our job not to have all the answers or just focus in on results, but
Got
be able to cultivate a relationship with our direct reports. That
it.
is, this is what I mean by coaching for performance. We coach them to be able to develop strategic problem solving capabilities. That means working shoulder to shoulder with them, externalize the issue or the problem and work through it and help them develop that's what we mean by developing someone else's potential.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Makes sense. I just have a pressing question, Rob. So, I mean, we kind of start cultivating, building these nuances as a child, right? I mean, and a lot of it possibly gets wired while we are in our teens, and maybe it's very difficult to unlearn and then relearn a lot of it. So, in your understanding, do we need to know some of those things?
I love this question. So, as an executive coach, I always like to look at. So, I take there's 3 or 4 different levels of coaching. I like to bring in cognitive psychology. That's our thought patterns, our reactive natures. I like to bring in developmental coaching. This is our journey of maturity, and then positive psychology as well is begin to think and act like a next level leader, say. But what you're talking about is developmental. Is
Yeah.
I have a worksheet that I invite people that I'm coaching to fill out.
Mm-hmm.
It's called 3 chapters, and
Mm-hmm.
it's childhood, adolescence, early adulthood. And
Mm-hmm.
what we're looking for are patterns of behavior. Who were we when we were growing up? What was the role that we played? What were we known for? When did we expand our boundaries? All of these things. And there are some patterns in our life that are still affirming, that are solid, and that enable us to achieve great things. Could be resilience, patterns of resilience. But there are other patterns that are no longer serving us. It's important for us to understand what those patterns are and develop strategies for releasing those patterns. In other words, what's the part of yourself that is holding you back from stepping into that bright future that you want? Robert Keegan, from is a great authority in this area of developmental psychology, talks about immunity to change. So, what are the things that are keeping us from making those changes? That's an important area from an executive coaching perspective that we need to work through.
Yeah. Uh, Another question before I ask on a particular one, which might help all of us listening to you. Do you think in our childhood, when kids step up or kind of step up to do any of the performing arts, be it dramatics, be it dance, be it whatever else, does that kind of cultivate those muscles at early stage, and hence they're able to do better when they grow up, or it doesn't have any correlation and anybody can start at any part of their age to?
Anyone can start at any age. I didn't start in theater until I was in my 20s.
Got it.
But those that do have a solid foundation for it early,
Hmm.
that's what I mean about setting good patterns. They
Got it.
develop discipline. They develop strength, core. They develop self-awareness. They develop good social skills. And I know so many people that had a background in theater. I mean, the recent program I delivered at MIT, there were 3 students that came up to me afterwards, and they were exceptional in some of the exercises that I introduced, because they came up and said, "Oh, that my background in theater, you brought it all back for me."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's about making sure that we bring those experiences with us if we have them. And if we haven't had the opportunity to have them, we can seek them out. A lot of the suggestions, recommendations I make for some are to take an improv class,
Yeah.
to take a voice and acting class. And you can get that at your local university. And that's global. I don't know any cultures, and this is global, and I've taught all over the world, that every culture has theater and some sort of artistic expressiveness in their culture. And so this is not a skill set that is only applicable, let's say, in the West or the East or anywhere. It's applicable because we're humans.
Yeah.
We're human beings. And if there's one thing that ties us together across is our story.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I have found is that we have more in common as human beings than we have differences.
Absolutely. We've seen that. And yeah, you mentioned that a lot of it you teach at MIT, and there are a lot of programs that happen in Premier B schools. But that's where I think, through Star and Me, what we try to take experts like you to organizations and kind of
Yeah.
ensure that people who do not come for exec education for multiple such reasons do still get this quality aspect of it from experts like you, and we're really looking forward to engage with you in various such assignments with our corporate clients and bring these amazing impactful lessons to professionals and help them in their leadership journeys and make them leaders of choice. So,
It's
whatever.
it's really interesting, Mao. It's one little thing, a skill, a concept that somebody could bring into their day to day leadership can make such a huge difference. I mean, one such thing is if you've ever had a leader in your organization that you're meeting with and they speak and they like to hear themselves talk, and then as soon as it's someone else's turn to talk in that meeting, they'll immediately pick up their phone and begin to do something on their phone. And
Yeah.
so this is an important concept in theater. It's called giving focus. When
Mm-hmm.
you're on stage with a group of people that are your fellow actors and it's someone else's turn to talk, you don't all of a sudden get busy over here and start doing something because that'll draw attention to you. What you
Right.
want to be able to do is give that person your eyes, give them your attention. And that means giving focus so that if an audience member looks at you, they're directed by your eyes to look at the person that is currently speaking. The same concept holds true in meetings. As a leader, we have to give focus to the people that are speaking if they're around the table. We have to give them an opportunity to speak
Mhm.
around the table
Got it.
and also give focus. And here's another thought is I worked with someone that was from Singapore, and she had grown up in an organization that was extremely open. Everyone's voice was heard, highly collaborative. She took a role in South Korea, and she worked for somebody that was, when they were around a meeting table, he was only allowed to speak and no one else was allowed to speak.
Mm-hmm.
She looked around and said, "Oh my God, am I the only person that noticed this is weird?" In other words, create an environment where all voices are heard. And if anyone is listening right now has ever been in a meeting and knew something had to be said, wanted to say it, but held your voice for fear of retribution or retaliation, that's ultimately dysfunctional. And
Got
it's as leaders, we want to create environments of psychological safety. Now, why? What's the business case? The business case is the knowledge that is stored in the minds of everyone in that room need to be maximized.
Yeah.
And if you think it's only about you, then you don't really understand what leadership is about. Leadership is about drawing out the collective intelligence of the people in the room. So that means creating a safe environment where people can bring up their ideas, find their voice.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, so agree to, when we engage with a lot of our clients, I think one of the things which worked really well is this cohort based learning structure where you put in a cohort of 25, 30 of them create that safe space so that they're able to express themselves, because as you kind of gain experience, you increase your number of years of experience. There's so much that you want to share, and those remain as tacit knowledge in every individual if they do not get a platform to share, to nurture, to exchange ideas, and those voices just get choked out and they have no platform to share. And we have seen most of these cohort based learnings, in comparison to a lot of these um learnings that you do by yourself virtually, has so much of an impact as a leader,
Yeah.
because you get to learn by sharing and learning and hearing from others versus you kind of taking it as a one off mode. So, yeah, it has a lot of positive collaterals for an organization on building their leaders within the organization, to put them in cohorts and get learnings like these done.
I 100% agree with you. I don't think that's going away anytime
Yeah,
soon. I don't
yeah,
think machine learning, artificial intelligence is going to replace that at all. It's the nuance,
yeah.
and that is a very difficult thing to achieve in AI. Is that deep nuance that allows people to change,
Yeah.
to make that shift in their mindset and behavior, role and identity.
Right, right, right. All right. I think we've been speaking for more than 30 minutes. Does anybody have any question or you want to talk to Rob? Please raise your hand so that we can get you on the podium.
It's nice. It's great to see people that have joined
Yeah, it's,
mostly have stayed with the conversation. So it's very, we appreciate your
yeah.
attention and focus. So if anyone does have a question, happy to answer it.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, please feel free. It's a small group, so I think it's fine. But yeah, it's always great to hear from Rob. I've been engaging for some time, so I get to any pressing question that you have, please do share. But yeah, given that I don't think anybody is putting their hands up, maybe I'll just ask my last question, Rob, before we kind of summarize our conversation today. Would you want to brief a little bit about the word effortless in your effortless exec presence?
Sure. Excellent. I call it effortless executive presence because when we experience it with somebody that has it, it seems effortless. It
Uh-huh.
just seems natural. And that's an important element. But although we know it takes years of discipline and practice to get there. So when you read the introduction of my book, I talk about the apprentice style of leadership: novice, apprentice, journeyman, master. And you have to go through these stages. In other words, if you say, I'd really like to learn that, you try it and it lasts for about a week and then you don't do it any longer, that's the novice. And it's very hard. You have to set the hook and you have to get into they call it the woodshed, and you have to become familiar with all the tools, all the skill sets, all the mindsets, and begin to play around with them, learn them. And then the journeyman, that's the person that is putting them actively into practice at work, in their environment. And mastery happens without you even knowing it. It comes out of discipline and practice and a commitment to becoming something larger than you've been. In other words, it's this journey of self-development. What are you in the process of becoming? What type of a leader? Do you have a vision for yourself as a leader? And so as you do that, and the program that I have, it's called Effortless Executive Presence, breaks down all of these skill sets. It's a number of modules on the presence of a leader, authenticity, purpose, and connection, expanding into conflict, leadership storytelling, and overcoming resistance and gaining momentum behind our ideas, because we all do it in the context of work. Now,
Yes.
there's one thing that is really important, and it's central to this, is this. I call it the trap of the professional persona. It's not becoming, so we might work in a certain culture, and that culture is saying you have to be like this type of a person. It's uh, it's when we build an authentic executive presence. It's not about acting the way we think we should act, but incorporating a sense of authenticity. So I'm doing a program for Ernst and Young, one of the large
Yeah.
global consulting companies. I had 85 consultants in a room for a full day. Now, these are the smartest people in the world, at least in their minds.
Yeah.
But anyway, at the beginning of the day, I asked one of the leaders if someone would be willing to come up onto stage and do an exercise with me. This one fellow raised his hand. Now you have to see this person was about 6'3". He had a $5,000 suit on. He was manicured. I mean, it's like perfect. And I said, okay, what I'd like you to do is share a situation, something that you're working on that you're having trouble with, that you're stumped, that you don't have the answers to, that you're struggling. He hesitated for a moment and then he said, okay. He came onto stage, took his coat off, loosened his tie, told his story. The exercise went very well. At the end of the day, he came up to me and he said, can I speak with you for a moment? I said, sure. He said, thank you. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my entire career. You have to understand, for 20 years, I've been working to develop a professional persona, this veneer of invincibility, that I had to have all the answers, that I had to be perfect. I couldn't show any sign of weakness. I actually thought walking up onto that stage that they were going to laugh me off the stage.
Got
He
it.
said, if we're going to achieve what we want to achieve in our organization, we have to be willing to be vulnerable.
Hmm.
We have to be willing to share that we don't know all the answers, that we need to grow as people and
Yeah.
connect with each other more authentically. I
Yeah.
I was floored when he said that.
No, 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 absolutely. Because the most difficult, possibly the most difficult and the most important thing for leaders is to be vulnerable. It's super difficult to do it, but that's the starting point of growth of a leader, is being able to express that they do not know it all, and it takes a village to build great organizations and great teams and great products and services. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, all right. All right, and whoever is still stuck with us in the audience, I mean, we would want to kind of thank you for being here and also share that Rob does this amazing program on effortless exec presence. And I think his next cohort starts in September. On this page of the Star and Me, we will post a link of where you can register in case you are planning to get started with your exec presence journey in a disciplined manner. Do sign up, explore, sign up, and get in touch if you would want to get yourself onboarded. I think he's getting his batch started and people are getting onboarded now for his September cohort.
And
So
there
if
are
you
still
would,
seats available.
okay, all right,
It
okay.
starts on September 12th. So this week and next week would be important if you are interested. Happy to have a conversation.
Awesome. So we will kind of share the link for you to explore and register. Do look at it, and thank you for joining in and being present through the conversation. It would have been amazing to hear from some of you your thoughts and your questions. But nevertheless, thank you and good luck. Thanks a lot, and thank you, Rob, for being and giving us so many insights on exec presence and
Thank you, Mawa.
always
Very,
living the
very
process.
a wonderful conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Bye bye. Thank you.